Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today I've got a quick roundup of what I'm calling the second half of the ranked season, which is the tier 10s. It's something completely new. I'm not really going to discuss the tier 8s at all because I've talked about it before, I've talked about 7s. Nothing's really changed there. The big difference this season is the fact that tier 10s are here, and also I don't think there's really a strong meta. In previous seasons, you basically walked into a battle knowing what you'd be fighting. You know, it would be a couple of the same battleship, a handful of one or two cruisers, and then the same one or two destroyers. But so far in my experience, grinding up through the tier 10s, every match has been different, and night to night it changes. And I think a bit of that's people trying to figure out their little ways to get wins, because wins can be hard to come by and it feels like you have to do a lot of work. So I'm going to quickly just dive through each class, talk about the ships I've found have been strong for me, ones that have been weak, or ones that I've just seen perform well. So starting out, we'll go right to my old home, the DDs, and honestly, I haven't found a lot of luck in destroyers this season. The gearing has shown some success simply because it's American, it's what I've played a lot of previous seasons in, I'm used to her. You can bring the anti-air load out, and when you do run into those carriers, it allows you to protect yourself. But what I find at tier 10 making the destroyers hard is it's hard to get a lot of consistent damage out of the higher tier destroyers because of radar, and you run into a lot. Minotaurs with radar, Des Moines, Moskvas, you just tend to sail into a lot of radars. Heck, even some of the DDs like the Yu-Yang or the Z-52's Hydras. There's just a lot of ways for destroyers to be found, and playing a support role in the destroyer, well, can be very beneficial to your team if your team isn't willing to take advantage of the work you're doing for them, i.e. laying smoke to help your cruisers stay concealed, getting aggressive, spotting, passively spotting, trying to help your team do damage and getting the caps. If they don't take advantage of that, you don't have a lot there. Now, the Yu-Yang is kind of the new kid to the block still as far as destroyers go. I think it's a strong ship. Its deep water torps can definitely do work against cruisers and battleships. She's maybe a little weak countering other DDs. She's strong in that her concealment is very good, but without that ability to torpedo other destroyers, one or two games now in my gearing, I've ended up in a cap with just an island separating me and the Yu-Yang, and he had no support, so I just pushed around and torpedoed him. And when you do find yourself in situations where it's you and a Yu-Yang, if you're in a destroyer and you can get aggressive because they don't have support, your torpedoes give you an edge there. Now obviously the Qckslvrslash with her recent detectability buff offers the traditional Japanese role that we've seen in every previous ranked season. The IJN destroyers coming out to throw torps and just passively spot, try to find enemy DDs and then just kite and keep them lit for friendlies to destroy. But once again, relies on friendlies to actually shoot the things you have lit. And I kid you not, at a game in my minnow where I had an enemy Yu-Yang lit for 2.5 minutes continuously, they were stationary and not a single shell was fired their way. And that was one of my most frustrating experiences. For people who watched my stream, they would have seen that. As far as the Kappa goes, I've seen it a few times, but it's really kite and shoot. You know, it can be strong against other destroyers if they're misplaying. They always have a detection advantage on you, and if they play that well, you're the one who's going to lose that fight. And moving on, we hop into cruisers. This is where I've found most of my success this season, and my success has been divided amongst three ships primarily: the Zhao, the Des Moines, and the Minotaur. And the reason being, they all kind of do one thing well the same, and that's their detectability is better than the Moskva, Hindenburg, and Henry. So you can control your engagement, particularly in the Des Moines and Minotaur with that radar. You're able to light DDs. So if a DD is spotting you, you just punch that button and you're able to work them down. The Zhao can do much the same because her guns are very accurate, and you just have to play with your detectability in a way that the destroyers accidentally sail into you. And I've done that a couple times on a flank. I had a gearing chasing me down and just slamming the brakes on and turning in quickly he didn't slow down soon enough or see it happening, and got into range, managed to work him down really quickly. The nice thing with the Minotaur being, if you're detected, you have radar range. And couple that with Hydro and good AA, if you build her to AA, she is a dangerous ship. You know, you don't have to fear CVs a whole ton. They can still get to you, but you will shoot a lot of planes down. The Hydro keeps you safe. And as with the Des Moines, if you're running a radar mod, between the radar mod and Hydro, you have basically 3 minutes of continuous detection of, you know, that kind of bubble around you. Meaning if you get yourself into a middle map position or into a contested cap where you're not getting shot, you're able to just keep that whole cap lit for quite some time. And that's kind of how I went on a roll in my Des Moines. I found the last 2 nights I was running into just tons of destroyers in every game. So I switched to the ship I felt I was best suited to contest the destroyers in, and that was the DM. And as any good old DM, ultimately late game, if you are trying to hold a position, things have to push around your corner, the high rate of fire and just good frontal guns on this thing, you start to pump citadels into things. I haven't personally tried the Henry yet. She could have a role, but to me it's very support orientated, sitting at range doing damage, and that doesn't help you win games. The Zhao can get in close using the detection and just dumpster cruisers and really work down destroyers. The Moskva, it's got that really long range radar. The issue with the Moskva, in my mind, you saw it in clan battles, was it can just get detected and spotted from such a range that it's almost always lit on a lot of these maps. And that means it's, when there's no other targets, you're just getting focused down, and they might not be doing tons of damage because you can bow tank a bit, but fires add up, all that damage adds up, and you're out of a game early. The Hindi, perennial favorite, you know, it's always going to be a great open water ship. You do double rate or rudder, sit at longer range, you're able to just continuously fire without really taking damage back, and her armor is sturdy. Downside being the detection. If you're against something like a Zhao, the Zhao controls your fight and just waits for you to turn out, puts damage in. The final class I'm really going to discuss, because I'm not going to talk about carriers, because there's only 2 options, and carrier players, well, I am not, is the battleships. And the battleship I've had success in is the Republique. Her speed lets you relocate quickly, rate of fire really helps you get the shots when they count. You know, and something like the Yami or kind of the other battleships, your rate of fire can hurt you because you shoot at a target you have, and you might not be reloaded by the time they go dark. You know, it's a strategy I use quite often when dealing with battleships in a cruiser, is I'm watching them, I see them shoot, I start opening fire, and I know I've got basically 2 volleys I can get on them, and then if I stop firing, I'll basically be going dark as they're reloading. That's not the case in the Republique. She kind of always seems to have shells ready, and once again, just that high speed really lets her get into the fight. And if you play smart, you're not going to be eating a ton of damage. The Conqueror is a very easy ship to get a lot of damage in, and with those repairs, if you do eat a lot of damage early, you're able to recover it. I actually have a game that was saved by a friendly Conqueror who was on like 1,000 hit points. The repair party came up, they came back to half health. The enemy team had already started just completely committing to a push there, thinking the Conqueror was dead, and when suddenly it was on half health again, they slammed the brakes on and confusion ensued. They got picked apart one by one, and that's kind of what the Conqueror can do. I would recommend running the smaller guns so that you just have more guns, more fire chance, more shells. They're plenty big to punch into cruisers. I don't see a purpose behind the bigger guns personally. As far as the 3 older battleships, I think the GK is the bit of the sore thumb. It's just such a big, slow ship. Sure, you can go secondaries and laugh and have fun, but it's a very easy ship to get focused down in because she is so big and such an easy target. The same can be said for the Yami, but the Yami at least can sort of bow up or sit far enough at range and have the accuracy to do consistent damage. And the Yamato just has that history of being able to overpen and dumpster on pretty much anything. The Monty, I think, is a solid choice too if you're good in it. And ultimately, that's what I'm seeing this season at tier 10 so far, is people are bringing the ships they're good in. When they see something that they're not liking, they're going to another class. And don't get steadfast that there's one right ship to play. And if anything, I think maybe that's a bit of what's the tier 10 season has changed. So I think back to some of the other seasons, we're like, oh, Belfast is the only ship you can use, which in my opinion was the stupidest mindset in the world. Because there were so many counters to a ship like the Belfast, but people just went, these are the 3 strong ships. If you're not in one of these, you're stupid. Well, at tier 10, the ships all kind of come together as far as, you know, general playability. You think about the destroyers, they're all, depending how you set them up, decent enough gunboats or decent enough torp boats, that you're not giving a whole ton up to bring something a little different. And that's kind of ultimately what's happening at tier 10. There's differences between the ships, but if you're good in it, bring what you are good in. Because being very strong in a ship is a lot better than you trying to bring something that everyone tells you is the right thing to bring and playing it like a fool. And that would be my advice. Just pick the ships you're strong in, play your best game, and work as a team, and you can climb up this season. If anyone sees me in game, feel free to try to focus me down. I'll enjoy a good fight. I plan to be streaming again part of tomorrow. King of the Seas is tomorrow for me, so that's going to take up a chunk of my afternoon, but I will be streaming some more ranked. I only played a couple games this week despite planning to try to make 5. I think I'm sitting at 7 right now. Just been going a little slower this season. In the past, I've always tried to rank out in like a week and a half, and it just, a lot of games in very little time, whereas playing a little slower, I've had a lot of success. And once again, the big thing I've been doing is pretty much the second a ship stops working for me, I change. I was in the Zhao for a number of battles, having a pretty good time, and then I lost 2 or 3 in a row in her, where I just feel like I wasn't in the right role to counter what was happening in the game, and I switched to the DM and went on a roll. If I run into problems in the Des Moines, I'm not going to sit in the ship trying to make her work. I'm going to look at what I'm running into in a match and pick what I think can counter that. Anyways, I hope those of you who watch this find it useful. I know there's not a ton of information, it's a lot of just kind of opinion, but you'll kind of see what I mean with the meta just seems to change night to night. You'll go from seeing 4 DDs every match and 1 battleship and maybe 2 cruisers to matches that are entirely battleships. And it's been interesting because you think you're in a ship that's set like good to compete and counter what you've seen in the last couple matches, and then suddenly you drop against something completely different. Anyways, hope everyone found this informative. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, and as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you all later.